Let's play a game. Think of a club that comes to your mind first when you hear the name Champions League. Real Madrid. Did I guess right? For those people whose answer was different, I have an additional question. Which team has made you most furious in the last few years? For example, by knocking your favorite team out of the Champions League, or by unfairly winning at the very end of a crucial game? Is your answer Real Madrid this time? The Spanish team will forever remain in the chronicles of football. For some fans as the best club in history, which will always remain in the bottom of their hearts. For others as the greatest enemies who do not deserve their trophies and glory. Today we will talk about a club that has become a synonym for the Champions League and became the absolute dominator of this competition since the very beginning when the tournament was called the European Cup. Together, we will trace all their ups and downs. We will answer why they have such a great will to fight and why they are able to turn the match in their favor in the last few minutes. Enraging fans of Bayern Munich, Manchester City, Atletico Madrid, and many others. But above all, we will answer the most important question. Why is Real Madrid destroying the Champions League? Part 1. The beginnings. To fully understand the whole story, let's move back in time to the 1940s, when today's Champions League was born. The idea for the tournament for Europe's top teams came from two L'Équipe journalists, Gabriel Hanot and Jacques Ferrand. They took inspiration from a similar tournament played in South America. In 1955, these men managed to convince UEFA to arrange such a tournament. The organization agreed and gave the competition a name, the European Cup. It is interesting to note that the same two men are responsible for the creation of the Golden Ball Award, which after all is still organized today by France Football, whose director was the previously mentioned Jacques Ferrand. The first edition of the European Cup was held in the 1955-1956 season and involved 16 teams. AC Milan, AGF Aarhus, Anderlecht, Djurgården, Guardia Warsaw, Hibernian, Partizan, PSV Eindhoven, Rapid Wien, Real Madrid, Rot-Weiss Essen, Saarbrücken, Servette, Sporting, Reims, and Villeureux-Lobogo. Originally, only the champions of the national leagues were admitted to the competition. The first match ended with a score of 3-3 between Sporting and Partizan. Neither of these teams conquered the competition either in that edition or in the future. Real Madrid has done so. In the 1955-1956 season, Los Blancos' top scorer was Alfredo Di Stefano. The striker was a guarantee of goals. His fantastic disposition and the good performance of the whole team led them to the final at the Parc des Princes, where they faced Stade Rennais. After a very tight game, Real Madrid won 4-3, with goals from Alfredo Di Stefano, Marquitos, and 2 times from Hector Real, becoming the first winner of an official European club competition under the UEFA. In the future, they had achieved this 14 more times. Between 1956 and 1960, Real Madrid won all editions of the European Cup, setting a record of 5 wins in a row that remains unbeaten to this day. Several factors contributed to the success. First and foremost, a great role in making Real a world power was played by the president of that time, Santiago Bernabeu, who led the club from 1943 to 1978. He signed world stars such as Di Stefano, Francisco Gento, and Ferenc Puskás to the team and managed them perfectly. He didn't keep himself locked into a strict framework of scouting footballers within his own country, but rather bet on young talents from abroad. As a natural consequence of his phenomenal presidency, Real Madrid had many great players. In addition to the previously mentioned stars, the team also had fighters who weren't afraid of any sacrifice on the field, such as Marquitos and Raymond Kopa. It is worth mentioning that in that period, Di Stefano scored 49 goals in 58 matches in the European Cup, and because of his club and individual achievements, he won the Ballon d'Or 2 times, in 1957 and 1959. Apart from Di Stefano, the other biggest star of the team was the previously mentioned Ferenc Puskás, the best Hungarian footballer ever. Both of them were responsible for such a huge goal score in the competitions, and they exchanged the top scorer title between each other. Puskás won it 3 times, Di Stefano twice. The Hungarian scored 36 goals in 41 matches during his years in Real Madrid. It is worth mentioning that Ferenc, in the 1960 final, won 7-3 against Eintracht Frankfurt and scored as many as 4 goals. Despite such amazing play, Ferenc Puskás never received a Ballon d'Or. After 5 years of success, Real had to wait until 1966 for another victory in this competition. Los Blancos beat Yugoslav Partizan 2-1 in the final and won the cup for the 6th time, the second time under coach Miguel Muñoz and the last under Santiago Bernabeu's presidency. Part 2. The silence. After the 1965-1966 season, there began an incredibly long period of failures in the European Cup. Imagine the fact that Real Madrid couldn't win the tournament for the next 32 years. Formula One fans can surely compare this period without victories to the breakdown of Ferrari, who didn't win a single championship title between 1979 and 1999. However, let's go back to football. Los Blancos, after a brilliant streak, lost some of their vitality on the European stage. Instead, they were very good in national competitions. During years without a victory in the most important club competition, Real have lifted the Spanish championship trophy as many as 16 times. However, in Europe, it was much worse. In 32 years, they reached the semi-finals 7 times and the final only once, in 1981, when they lost to Liverpool 1-0 at the Parc des Princes, the stadium where they won their first European trophy. Dreams of a beautiful comeback were destroyed by Alan Kennedy's goal in the 82nd minute of the match. The biggest stars of that team were Vicente del Bosque and Laurie Cunningham. This final was a kind of precursor to a return to a winning path in Europe. It happened in the 1984-1985 season when Real won the UEFA Cup, the equivalent of today's Europa League, the second most important trophy in European club football. In the final, which consisted of a 2-match series, they beat Videoton FC 3-1, winning 3-0 in the first match and losing 1-0 in the second. They also succeeded in the following season, this time winning against FC Köln 5-3, in a 2-match series, with coach Luis Maloney responsible for both successes. These 2 triumphs obviously helped them to pass through the worst period without victories in the most important European Cup, but the real breakthrough came in the 1997-1998 season. Part 3. The European powerhouse of football. The European Cup had managed to rename itself as the Champions League. The form of the competition had also changed. A group stage has formed, and it wasn't just the national champions who were admitted to the tournament. The best leagues in the Europe could present more than one team. It is somewhat surprising that a powerhouse like Real Madrid hasn't been able to follow up on the successes of the 1960s for 32 years, while teams such as Aston Villa, Hamburg, Steaua Bucharest, and Crvena Zvezda have won the competition. However, the 1997-1998 season arrived, and another fantastic era in the club's history began. The team again was filled with great footballers like Clarence Seedorf, Fernando Hierro, Raúl, Guti, Fernando Morientes, and Roberto Carlos, with Jupp Heynckes on the coaching bench. In the group, Real suffered only one defeat against Rosenborg, 2-0. In the knockout stage, they faced Bayer Leverkusen, Borussia Dortmund, and in the final, Juventus, where they won 1-0. It was Real Madrid's 7th Champions League triumph. Then Los Blancos started their winning streak, on which, with more or less frequent gaps, they continue to walk to this day. 2 seasons later, with Vicente del Bosque on the bench, Real repeated their success and won the competition for the 8th time. The core of the 1998 team remained the same, which combined with some fresh talent such as Samuel Eto'o and Nicolas Anelka led to a brilliant result, secured by a 3-0 win over Valencia in the final. The significant milestone that opened a new chapter in Real's history is the selection of a new president in 2000. That honor went to Spanish businessman Florentino Perez. The new manager didn't have to wait very long for his first Champions League trophy. It took him just 2 years. In 2002, Los Blancos won the final again, beating Bayer Leverkusen. That game is mainly known for the phenomenal goal by Zinedine Zidane, which gave the club their 9th Champions League victory, and a reason for the new president to be so proud. Zidane has proven his worth and has forever become a great figure in the club's history. He will prove his greatness even more in the future, but about that later. Part 4. Breakdown of Glory. After winning in 2002, Madrid had to say goodbye to the trophy for 12 years. Meanwhile, the club was going through a turbulent time. Throughout Perez's first presidency, he set himself the goal of getting the best players from around the world into his club. The team that formed Real between 2002 and 2006 became known as the Galacticos and included Luis Figo, Zinedine Zidane, Ronaldo, David Beckham, Michael Owen, Robinho, and Sergio Ramos, all brought in for huge and very huge money. However, the whole project turned out to be a failure because, apart from a Champions League triumph in 2002, only Zidane and Figo were then at the club, the team failed to win the competition for a few more years, and Perez was accused of overspending money. The biggest controversy was the transfer of Figo, who went to Real from FC Barcelona, the club's biggest rival. To this day, the Portuguese is still hated among Barcelona fans, and the football world considers him as the greatest traitor in history. The whole project was a flop. Furthermore, Perez upset the entire club by kicking the distinguished distinguished Vicente del Bosque out of his coaching job. It was probably because the coach and the old players didn't like the president's transfer policy. Florentino Perez stepped down in 2006, and with that, the first era of the Galacticos, one of the more embarrassing in Real Madrid's history, came to an end. However, Real Madrid quickly missed Perez, and he returned to the job in 2009. Has anything changed in his management style? Yes and no. Florentino was still bringing in global stars to the club and creating a second Galacticos, but with one key difference: it was working. Part 5. The Unbeatable. Right from his return to the club, Perez bought Karim Benzema, Xabi Alonso, Kaká, and Cristiano Ronaldo, for which Real paid Manchester United 94 million euros, with Ronaldo becoming the most expensive footballer in history at that moment. While Kaká proved to be a disappointment, and he wasn't as good as he had been at Milan before, the rest of the team became an important part of success. The effects didn't come immediately, as Real had to wait until the 2013-2014 season for their 10th triumph. But patience and clever transfers worked. The final of the Champions League in Lisbon was the culminating moment. Los Blancos' opponent was Atletico Madrid. Interestingly, it was the first final in the tournament's 70-year history to see teams from the same city fight against each other. After Diego Godin's goal in the 36th minute and several missed chances by Real, everyone watching expected Atletico's first historic triumph in the Champions League. Here, for the first time, we could see the show of determination and desire to win that we all have known Real Madrid for. Just before the final whistle, in the 93rd minute, Sergio Ramos scored the equalizing goal, and the match had to be continued in extra time. The joy that filled the hearts of the Real Madrid players helped them score 3 more goals, and from the hell they endured in the 92nd minute, they ascended to heaven by the 120th. This started Los Blancos' incredible series, which will forever remain as a shining example to others. Real Madrid won the Champions League 6 times in 10 years. It's because of the great coaches that were Carlo Ancelotti and Zinedine Zidane. Both won the Champions League with Real 3 times each, with Zidane winning it 3 times in a row. In addition to great coaches, the club had phenomenal players, led by the greatest of them, Cristiano Ronaldo, who scored 116 goals in the Champions League for Real Madrid. It is impossible to list here all the players responsible for such great successes of the team. However, when talking about the most important ones, it is necessary to mention Ronaldo, Ramos, Modric, Benzema, Bale, Carvajal, Marcelo, Kroos, Casemiro, and Varane. In the 2021-2022 and 2023-2024 seasons, Real won the Champions League with an already heavily reconstructed team. Experience was combined with youngness in the character of Vinicius or Rodrigo. Real Madrid's dominance is not a happy coincidence. It is their pure ability to win, their acquisition of world-class talent, and their tactical skills. The fact is that the Champions League has become synonymous with Real Madrid. Every football fan knows that even if Real don't do well in the league or national cup, they are always dangerous in the Champions League. It doesn't matter whether the year is 1960 or 2024, whether Di Stefano or Ronaldo is leading the club, and whether the coach is Miguel Muñoz or Carlo Ancelotti. Real Madrid was, is, and probably always will be outstanding. The Real Madrid shirt is white. It can stain of mud, sweat, or even blood, but never of shame.